Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this special episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde. Today, August 4th, we are very, very excited to bring on a special guest. This has been in the works for a very long time. But today we are having Chicago Bulls in-game commentator, Chicago legend, three-time NBA champion, Stacey King on the show. We're going to ask Stacey some questions about his playing days when he was a part of the first three-peat team, along with everything else about him when it comes to his commentating work, and a little bit more information about his opinion on the Chicago Bulls. We're super excited for this. I met Stacey last year at a restaurant where we chatted actually for about 20 minutes. He's one of the nicest and most approachable guys you'll ever meet. We talked about the upcoming season last year. We're going to talk about it again today, and we are very excited to have him come onto the show. So thank you very much for joining. And before we begin, we'd like to thank today's sponsor, Stupid Car Tray. Tired of your pizza topping sliding, office coffee distracting you while driving, grease and other stains getting on your seat, or you're just enjoying a game on the couch and don't want to lean over? Look no further than the Stupid Car Tray. Visit www.stupidcartray.com and use discount code J16 to get 16% off your entire order. Link in the description. Now, with that, our interview with Stacey King. Welcome to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. As stated before, this is a very special episode, and we're joined alongside our favorite, Stacey King. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Yeah, so quick little story about how Stacey and I met. We met last year while we were at a Mexican restaurant, and Stacey actually let me try his famous hot sauce. So make sure that you... It was hot, man. I walked up with Stacey with some Tabasco. He's like, no, you want to try this stuff. So, Stacey, to kind of kick things off, do you want to tell the viewers a little bit how the hot sauce got started and, where we can get it today?
Well, it just derived from my phrase that I used during the games. And that's kind of started it all. Give me the hot sauce. It's a catchy catchphrase that pretty much is Chicagoan catchphrase now. Pretty much global now, like everybody knows what it means. So that's pretty cool. I think when I say things, I don't really think about them going viral or global or all that stuff. I just say it because it fits the moment, it fits the play. And then people just run with them, which is pretty cool. So the hot sauce idea came from, we started, a couple of my buddies, we said, hey, you know what? Pandemic's here. Let's start a podcast. I'm missing being on TV. I'm missing talking about the games. Let's do a podcast. Everybody seems to be going into the podcast, business. And I said, hey, it's the wave of the future. We're not doing anything. Let's just get together and have some fun. I had no idea what it was going to be like. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. But I'm a pretty good talker. So, you had to figure it'd be pretty good when it comes to sports. So we started Give Me the Hot Sauce podcast, which derived from Give Me the Hot Sauce catchphrase. So then we had all these cool guests on here. We're at episode, we started this over a little bit over a year ago. No one knew how far we were going to go. A lot of podcasts don't last very long, 10, 15 episodes, because there's a lot of work to go into it, a lot of preparation, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, audio, visual stuff, all kind of stuff, man. And we're shooting I think our 92nd or 93rd episode now. So we're one of the top podcasts in Chicago. We're ranked to the national podcast level. And this is all just word of mouth. We don't have any big companies backing us. We don't have the Bulls backing me. We don't have ESPN or Comcast backing me. It's just straight up like Nipsey Hussle, baby. We're out there selling demo tapes from the back of our trunk. And we've grinded our way into being a very respectable podcast. A lot of hard work, but it's been fun. It's just like when you have a child, there's no joy in the world when you have your first son or any kids to matter, and then to watch that child grow, to understand that you're going to have a hand in his or her development and, push them into the direction that, not just sports or anything, but just being good, respectable human beings and watching them grow into that role. And there's nothing better than, as a parent, than seeing your child grow up, go to high school, go to college, be able to support themselves and be respectful human beings. So it's kind of the same thing when you start a podcast. You know, I mean, you got your podcast going, and you know, it wasn't always easy, you know, but you found a way to get it going. You found a way, a niche, that stuff you like to talk about that's important to you, and you got to follow it, you know. So then when we have all these cool guests on here, like I've had a bunch of cool guests on my show, so we were just going to just make up some hot sauce. Like, let's create our own hot sauce, you know, and let's give it to our guests, you know. So any guest comes on our show, we just give them hot sauce, you know. And then I said, wait a minute. I told my partner, Timmy Whispers, who's on my show, I said, wait a minute. Let's see if there's a demand for it in Chicago. Let's see if anybody would buy it. So we put I think we put 25 bottles out on eBay, and they were gone within the hour. And then we got back ordered. We got back ordered like 150, then it was 300. It was like, oh my God. And it was kind of hard in the beginning because it happened right around Christmas time. So we were getting slammed with orders. So we had to really like grind and you know, get all the orders out, and we did it. We caught up with everything, and we've been rolling ever since.
I will say, and I can testify to it, it's hot. When you gave me a little bit, you're like, try a little bit, man. I was like, okay. And I remember looking at you, I was like, you got any extra water laying around? It's good, man. I'm a huge fan of it. Just like everyone in Chicago is a huge fan of you. And I'm sure people kind of want to hear a little bit more about you. I've watched your show. I just watched the episode with Jalen Brunson when he came on. I went to Deerfield, so Stevenson was right down the road. So I kind of knew Jalen. We're the same age as well. So everyone make sure that you go and check out Stacey's podcast. I'll make sure that I put in the description. But Stacey, we're going to ask you a couple more questions today about your experience being with the Bulls from the beginning to the end. So kind of want to start off with, you know, your career as a Chicago Bull. You were a part of the first three-peat back in the 90s, you know, playing alongside Michael Jordan, Scottie, Horace. Can you kind of describe, you know, people watch The Last Dance on ESPN, but can you kind of describe what it was like playing alongside Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen?
You know what? It was magical times. I always are going to be impartial to the first three-peat because it was the first time it's ever been done. First time an NBA team won a championship. First time we won it in our second championship, we won at home at the old stadium, and all the crowd got a chance to be part of that. So those were magical times in the 90s, the early 90s, especially because we were a young team. The Bulls had been scratching on the surface of getting over the hump, but they just couldn't get over the Pistons. And, so I came in right at the right time. You know, I was a piece of the puzzle. I was a two-time All-American at University of Oklahoma. Like, I averaged almost 30 points a game. Normally, you don't go to a lottery. Normally, you don't go to a team that's won 50 games. When you're in a lottery, you go to a team that's bad, that needs you. And, you know, the Bulls got 3 first-round picks on a 50-win team that year in '89, which is unheard of. We're the reason they created the protective lottery pick rules. That was because of us. It was because of Chicago. They because what happened was I got traded. I mean, we had Orlando Woolridge was here in Chicago. He's playing with Michael Jordan. They traded him to New Jersey for an unprotected pick, which turned out to be a lottery pick. And that was me. So that 6th pick, it wasn't even a 6th pick at the time. It was a lottery pick. Could have been number 1 pick, but it was a lottery pick. And it was unprotected, so the Bulls got a lottery pick. So they got a chance to get the number 1 pick in that draft. Anywhere in the lottery is going to be great for them. And plus, they're a 50-win team, and that enables them to strengthen their bench with like top players, you know, and drafted homegrown players. So they got me. BJ, I think, was 18. And I think we got Jeff Sanders was at 20, 21 or something. So we picked up, they got 3 really good players in the draft that year. And, I came in there, and the first thing they told me, I'm used to scoring. The very first thing came out of Jerry Krause's mouth is, we don't need you to score. We need you to play a role. And I blatantly looked at it and said, then why did you draft me? Like, that's what I told him. I was like, why did you draft me? Because, you're talking about, first team consensus All-American. You're talking about a guy who took his team to a national championship, led the tournament in scoring. And you're telling me now I can't score? So, but I'm a winner, though. I'm a winner. I love that team. I loved all those players on that team. So I was resistant my first year per se. But once I saw that we were winning and we had a chance to win and win a lot, my mind changed a little bit, because I would rather, when I started thinking about it and I saw how the fans responded to us winning, and when we went on the road, it was like a rock band. I love that, because that's how it was when I was at Oklahoma. We'd go on road trips and everyone see us on TV and we were like rock stars. But it was magnified by 1,000 when I got here. I mean, I thought it was big in college, but it was nothing compared to what I got here. So when I saw how all the people worldwide reacted when we come to town, I kind of was like, yeah, I like this. I like this feeling, because when you losing, ain't nobody doing that. Ain't nobody excited to see you. Matter of fact, they don't even want you in their city. So, so that's why I don't want to, I didn't want to be part of a losing team. And it was great that I was on a winning team, and to be part of something that's special, be part of something that's like, that's never been done. I mean, as great as Michael was his first 7 years, he didn't win, and he didn't start winning until, Jerry Krause took over, and they started putting players around him that could complement his skill set. Scottie wasn't Scottie yet, Horace wasn't Horace yet. Michael was still the dominant force on that team. And it took 3 years, Scottie had shown flashes, but it took 3-4 years for Scottie to get to the elite Scottie that we know today. Same thing with Horace. I mean, those guys had to grow and develop. By the time I got here, they were in year 4. So they had already pretty much grown into who they were going to be. So they were ready to go to that next level. Now here you come with these 3 young kids from college. We got to play catch up per se. So we got to fill a role. We got to find out how we can help this team win. And, roles that we didn't like, BJ would say the same thing, roles we didn't like, but we won, and we won championships. We accepted our role. And at the end of the day, it's all about winning for us. Because if I was on a losing team and I had to play that role, I would have asked to be traded from day one. But when you're winning, and you're part of something special, and you're part of something special, it's easy for you to kind of fall in line and to find your role, because you like that. You like the thrill of winning, because at the end of the day, Nick, there's a big pie. Okay. I always liken this analogy. There's a pie. Okay. Michael can't eat all the pie. Everybody's going to get a slice of the pie. Everybody's going to, some may get bigger pieces than others, but nobody's going to go hungry. Okay. And being on those championship teams, I'm sure you can look at everyone that was on those championship teams, man. They have had successful careers outside of basketball. It didn't end with championships. They've been in the front office. They've been radio, television, public speaking. Every single one of those players on those championship teams are doing something outside of basketball that screams success. And that's what happens when you're on winning teams.
Love to hear that. I mean, that's such an interesting perspective, because, a lot of fans, especially my generation, I was, in 97, that's when I was born. So I didn't even really get to see Michael play in a Bulls uniform. I got to see him in a Washington Wizards uniform, from what I remember.
Yeah, nobody remembers that, Nick. Nobody remembers
No one remembers that. Yeah, man, we don't want to remember that either. We don't even remember him in Chicago.
I kind of bleached that out of my mind watching that Michael Jordan.
Absolutely. And, I think everyone also did the same thing besides the few diehard Wizards fans. So speaking of success, you've been with the Bulls commentating games since 2006 and have been ever since. During your time, the Bulls have been in the 11 playoff runs during that time. And, obviously there's been really special players, obviously Derrick Rose, too big, too strong, too fast, too good, Kirk Heinrich, Taj Gibson. And Jimmy Butler. There's been so many guys along the way. I mean, I love Joakim Noah too. He was there. I could go on and on and on about it. But during those 11 playoff runs, and you can say even if there wasn't a playoff run, can you describe your 2 favorite seasons and why they were so special?
Man, that's tough. It's tough. I just love that team. I mean, there's not one particular playoff game that was really stood out. It was just that team. They had great camaraderie. They really, really fought for each other. I go back to, Derrick Rose is like Haley's Comet. You only see it once every, blue moon. And when you do see it, you better get a good glimpse at it because you may not see it again. And lo and behold, we see Ja Morant. So, but at that time, this kid from Chicago grew up here, always idolized the Bulls and got a chance to play for his hometown team and try to do something special. And without that injury happening, man, I honestly do believe it would have been tough, but I honestly believe they would have beaten LeBron James to get to a finals and win had he not got an ACL injury. That really destroyed, the magic that they had, and that kid went through so much in those 2 years trying to come back, people turning on him, questioning his heart, his work ethic, just tore that kid down, man. It was sad seeing that because of all the superstar players I've ever met, and I met everybody. This kid is one of the most true, humble human beings I've ever met in my life. No pretentious bone in his body, no selfishness, no me. The kid is just one in a million. And to hear, I'll defend Derrick Rose till the day I die. If someone has something bad to say about Derrick Rose, you might have to fight me because I know him personally. I've known him since he was in high school, and the kid hasn't changed. So that was a magical time too. I mean, Joakim Noah was the heart and soul. Joakim Noah was, he was the heart and soul of that team. And when he got hurt, that's another thing. That whole team started to break down at the end. Luol Deng started missing games. Derrick goes down. Joakim has knee injuries. Then we bring in some free agent guys to help. You got Rip Hamilton, who's never healthy here. Kyle Korver, and I mean, there was a 2 or 3 year run where they were on the cusp of winning. And, one move here and there from the front office, one more move to get another legit score, because not taking anything away from any of the guys that was playing with Derrick. Derrick was basically Michael Jordan pre-Bulls championships. It was Michael Jordan by himself. Every night he's putting on a show. It was the same thing with Derrick. And but Derrick will never say that. Derrick is like, hey, we did it together. We won, we lost, we did it together. But knowing that there wasn't really a legit number 2 guy, because in this league, as you see, you need 2, at least 3, minimum 3.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Minimum. Yeah.
And back then, you're going up against prime LeBron. Prime Dwayne Wade, prime Chris Bosh. Celtics were getting a little older, but the changing of the guard came with when the Heatles, and that was the Bulls' nemesis at that time. And if they had one more player, because it's like Superman. Okay, so Derrick's Superman. He's going up against 3 other superheroes that don't die. Okay, so they just as powerful as he is.
Yeah,
have the same kind of superpowers, but it's 3 against 1. Okay. And he's not going to beat 3 against 1. I mean, if you gave another superstar player, now you got a chance. And then a third guy who could be not a superstar, like a Carlos Boozer. You put Carlos Boozer in that third role, and then a second legit superstar, like another wing guy to go along with what they already had. I mean, you got a shot now.
Yeah. So we've worked with the Bench Mob before, and like we've reminisced with them about especially that 2010, 2011 Bulls team. And they were just so especially when Boozer came back from his injury, because, I believe he broke his thumb in the preseason tripping over a gym bag. And when he came back, we all thought, okay, they're hot. This is the team. And, if you could go back to that era, and I'm taking out LeBron James, I'm taking out Chris Bosh, I'm taking out D Wade. If anyone you could have taken, if you can remember from that free agency class, that would have been the guy that would have completed the Bulls along with Boozer, who do you think that would have been?
I would have said Dwayne Wade, because I think that if LeBron would have been here, I know the most popular choice would have been LeBron. But I think having LeBron here would have taken the ball out of Derrick's hands, and you would have forced him to be like Westbrook is in LA right now. Mm-hmm. You would have forced him to have to be a shooter, stand in the corner, let LeBron create for everybody. Whereas if you have Dwayne Wade here, now you move him into that 2-guard spot. You replace Keith Bogans, maybe move Keith Bogans coming off the bench. Now you got a deadly backcourt between two guys that can attack you from anywhere on the floor, like we have now with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. You have two guys that can attack you from anywhere on the floor and give you 30. So when you put Dwayne Wade in this mix, and this is prime D Wade. This is prime D Wade, who had about another 4 years of superstar basketball in him, playing at home with Derrick Rose. And again, take some pressure off Derrick Rose. They would have complemented each other a lot better than LeBron and Derrick Rose would have. Because, again, as much as I like LeBron, and I think he makes everybody around him better, I just think for a player like Derrick Rose, you would see what you're seeing in LA with Westbrook right now. Westbrook looks like an average player. But before Westbrook came to LA, he's one of the most exciting players in the game. I mean, this guy's walking triple-double. No one in this world thought anyone would ever average a triple-double in the NBA. He's did it like 3 times, I think. So, I mean, now he looks like a guy that doesn't even like he can play in the G League.
Man,
and people forget how good he was. But it's not that he's a bad player. It's now the ball's taken out of his hands. He doesn't know how to play with the ball out of his hands, and he's not a good three-point shooter. So you're forcing him to stand in the corner. And even though Derrick was probably a little bit better of a three-point shooter, and he might have been able to coexist, but I just think you would have the same situation that you have with Westbrook right now in LA.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, out of that team, I would have gone with D Wade too, especially being a Chicago grown guy. He just would have had, in my opinion, as a fan, more heart on the court like Derrick did. Yeah. And like how much it meant to the city of Chicago to be wearing a Bulls uniform. Because when D Wade was here, that's all he said. He's like, I really just wanted to put on that Bulls uniform and represent it. And we went to the playoffs. And if Rondo didn't get hurt that season, I believe it was 2015, 2016. Yeah. If Rondo didn't get hurt, who knows what the Bulls could have done? Because they shocked the world by how deep they took the Celtics in that. It was the Celtics in that first round.
Yeah. Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, easily could have won that series if Rondo doesn't go out. I mean, no one even gave us a puncher's chance. And, we go in there, Rondo, we get game 1, have a chance to get game 2, come back 2-zip. Chicago, it's a different series. But, would have, could have, should have, it's like in horseshoes and bags, It's so close, but so far away. But at the end of the day, like I said, I just think Dwayne Wade would have been a better fit. See, we got Dwayne Wade at the end of his career. So he lost some of his superpowers when he got him. He's still better than half the league, but he wasn't the Dwayne Wade, from the Miami days with LeBron. Right. That was the Dwayne Wade that was at the height of his superpowers. And if you put him with a young Derrick Rose, who's at the height of his superpowers, and both, I mean, just imagine what you would have seen on this team. You would have seen fast pace. You would have seen fast breaking. You would have seen attack. I mean, both these guys attacked the rim fearlessly, and they would have loved playing together. They would have fed off each other. Then you get a Boozer in there. You got guys coming off the bench that can, you got Joe Keem that would have been there too. I mean, their starting 5 would have been, Derrick, you would have had D Wade, Luol Deng, Boozer, and then Joe Keem Noah at the 5 spot.
That's scary.
Then you come
That's
off
a scary team.
Watson, maybe you have some other different, Kyle Korver was on that team. You have a really good balanced team. Yeah,
I agree. I think that bench, that Bulls bench that you were just talking about, was one of the best benches I've seen in the NBA obviously Miami had a super deep bench too, because everyone, Ray Allen everyone just started going to Miami because the team looked unstoppable, but the Bulls were right there, and they were just one piece away. It's just so frustrating. But Stacey, I got one more quick question for you, because how you and I met. We talked about the Bulls last year, and this was before the season started. And you and I kind of talked about this team's going to be dangerous. A lot of people were, not talking highly of DeMar, especially. And today, ironically, while we're recording, is the anniversary of the Bulls bringing DeMar to the team, and then Lonzo Ball, the rest of the bench that came in. Bulls have a much stronger squad, and we saw that because they made the playoffs. Unfortunately, with Lonzo's injury, it really hurt us. But things are looking bright for the future, and especially with the big signing of Drummond this past offseason. What should Bulls fans, kind of like what we talked about, what should Bulls fans be most excited about this upcoming season, and what should they expect out of this team? Because PointsBet is only saying that they're at 42.5 wins this year, which I don't believe. I think they're going to crush that.
You know what? I hate all these people, these so-called experts, because those are the same people 2 months in the season say I knew the Bulls were going to be one of the best teams. I mean, they jumped ship. They flipped so quick, man. And last year they didn't have the Bulls making the playoffs. Bulls were the best team almost the entire season until we started running into COVID and then Zoe got hurt. You have Zoe in that Milwaukee series healthy, we win that series easily. Okay, even with Chris Middleton going out, we win that series easily. So if I'm Bulls fans, first of all, the excitement was we made it to the playoffs last year after a 6-year hiatus. Okay, that's number one. Front office, great front office. They're doing whatever they can to put a winner on the floor. They're not afraid to make moves. They're not afraid to gamble. And they're out there doing it. I mean, so, they went out and got Vooch. That was the first domino. Well, the first domino was to bring Billy Donovan in. That was the first domino. Second domino was to go out and say, okay, hey, look, we don't have enough to, we're not even close to being a playoff team. So we got to go out and go get an all-star caliber center. They go out and get Vooch. We had to give up some young talent, Wendell Carter Jr., Daniel Gafford. But you know what? You can't get great if you're not willing to give up something. Okay, so they were willing to do that. So you bring Vooch. Now you got two all-stars. You got Vooch and Zach. So what do? Trade deadline, they try to go get Lonzo from New Orleans. The deal didn't go through. Most teams would have said, well, it's too expensive. We don't want to go after him. We tried to get him at trade deadline, tried to appease the fans. Hey, look, we're doing this. We're trying. So the fans go, hey, the Bulls, we're doing it. Well, lo and behold, summer, they got him. They didn't stop. They stayed on it. They recognized he's a key piece to where they want to go. So now you got your point guard, your two, and your small forward. 3 of the best players in the league on the floor and your all-star center. So now what do? So now we got to go in and fill in the spots. We believe Patrick Williams is going to be a very good stretch 4. They believe that he has all-star caliber potential. They believe that he is a guy in a few years that's going to be a cornerstone of this franchise, and he's going to be one of the elite players in this league. That was their first draft pick. They got him number 4. A lot of people on the outside talking noise. Oh, we don't know if he's good enough. We don't know if he's got aggressiveness, whatever, yada, yada, yada. But people don't understand, man, is like, they expect him to come in and play. Like, okay, Scottie Barnes in Toronto. Scottie Barnes comes in Toronto and lights out playing really, really great. Okay. Well, it was easy for Scottie Barnes to do that because you know why? Because Pascal Siakam missed half the season and they didn't have anybody else. So he got to do a lot of things that he probably wouldn't have got to do if their roster would have been healthy. Okay. You look at Evan Mobley. These guys are going to teams that are lottery caliber teams. They're going to get to play. They get to play right away. They don't have to play behind a veteran. They don't have to play with like really good veterans. Here you got this kid, Patrick Williams. He comes on a team. He's got he's got 2 different rosters now. His first roster, you got Ryan Arcidiacono, Felicio. You got that roster. Okay. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute. Now we got Vooch. So we got Vooch and, oh, wait a minute. We got DeMar DeRozan. Oh, we got Ball. We got Alex Caruso. So now he's like, where do I fit in? Like, where's my role? And then, and then he got hurt. Last year, I thought he was on the verge of taking off. A lot of people's like, he's injury prone. Man, he's not injury prone. It's been a lot of freak stuff. I mean, you can't guard against someone, you trying to dunk on someone and they clothesline you. There's nothing you can do about that. You're up in the air getting ready to bam on somebody's head, and then all of a sudden he clotheslines you and you break your wrist. That's something you can't guard against, okay? Mm-hmm. You can guard against coming into camp out of shape and then pulling a muscle and all that, like a James Harden. You come in out of shape, your body's not right now. You start having all these muscular injuries, hamstrings, and all this stuff. That stuff can be prevented if you come in better shape. But that's not the case with Patrick Williams. It's just been some freak accidents. This is the year I believe he takes off. This is the year I believe that he makes such a huge stride. And I think I go back to last year, Nick, at the end of the season, when he got to start in Minnesota, when everybody was out, we'd already clinched the playoff spot, and they turned the ball over to him and said, go get it. He had 30-plus points in that game, dominated. Yep. And people say, well, Minnesota didn't have all their guys. Yeah, they did. They had 2 starters out there. You had Anthony Edwards out there. You didn't have Towns, and you didn't have the point guard, D'Angelo Russell. Yep. You didn't have him, but you had Covington. You had all these other guys out there, Patrick Beverly, and then you also had Anthony Edwards, who's going to be one of the top players in the league. So he gave those dudes 30-something, and then in the playoffs, first game I think he was a little nervous. But after that, he was arguably the Bulls' second best player in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
He averaged 14 points a game and like 8 or 9 rebounds. And this year, what I want to see the Bulls do with him is to involve him more in the offense. Like, let him take the ball off the backboard, start the fast break. Like, because he used to be a point guard in high school, and he played that role at Florida State. Let him handle the ball more. Let him take it off the glass. Let our guys run the floor, get out in transition. Patrick's a good in the open court. He can find guys. He's much more versatile than I think they've allowed him to be. And I hope this year they turn him loose and say, listen, in order for us to get to that next level, you got to do this every night. We got to see Minnesota Pat. We got to see Milwaukee playoff Pat. And maybe he builds on that. The next guy that I think is going to have a huge year, people are down on, is Kobe White.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I think he's the next guy. He's the next guy. I think he's because everybody's like, oh, he's not a shooter. You got to remember, Kobe White had a torn labrum. Okay, he missed all of the training camp. Right. He missed all the training camp. So when he came back, he didn't have the same roster. There was no Ryan Arcidiaconos. There was no Felicios. He came back to a totally different roster who was already establishing themselves in their roles. Caruso, top player coming off the bench. Lonzo starting. DeMar starting small forward. Ayo now is starting to make a run and get into the rotation. So now he's playing catch up. So he probably, in my opinion, forced a lot of things, forced trying to get back too soon. He'll have a full training camp. He's healthy. He'll be ready to go.
I'm pumped about it. So Stacey, with this crazy improved roster, overall, what do you think that the Bulls are going to do this upcoming season, and where do you think their record's going to be?
Listen, they won 45 games with a roster there. We led the league in missed games with COVID injuries. Okay, 45 wins. So Lonzo's healthy. That's 50 plus wins. But this year, I feel like it's 50 wins. It's 50 wins, and I feel like they're gonna be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. And I believe that at the end of the day, they're going to get past the first round, because there's levels to this stuff, Nick. You don't just come after being out of the playoffs 6 years and then you win a championship. It doesn't work like that. You got to bleed. You got to scratch and claw, man. You got to go through some adversity. They went through some adversity. Their young players last year got tested. They saw what the playoffs are about. I think you ask each one of those guys who've never been to the playoffs, they'll tell you it's a different ball game. Much more intense, much more physical. It's not like the regular season. So that was a good taste test for them. So now they've tasted the honey, because this is what you play for. You don't play for the regular season. There's no regular season championship. This is what you play for. So, it's at the end of the day, there's levels. There's levels.
Absolutely. And what Bulls fans are excited for that. That's Stacey King's take on this team. Stacey, thanks for coming on, telling, all these great insights, all this information about you and your career. We're super excited for this upcoming season, and we hope to have you come on just another year again.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining this episode, and we'll see you guys later.